My name is Claire, and for years, I lived in a house where I was seen but not valued. I wasn't ignored, not completely. I was greeted in the mornings, asked what I wanted for dinner, and sometimes even thanked when I folded laundry or fixed a loose button. But it wasn't gratitude, it was routine. I moved in with Kevin and Jenna after they had their second baby. Kevin, my only son, called me one night and said they could use an extra pair of hands. Jenna was tired, the baby had colic, and their toddler wouldn't sleep unless someone lay beside her for hours. I had just sold the home where I raised Kevin, the house where I planted petunias every spring, the house that creaked with our history. I sold it and wired the down payment to help them buy this bigger place. I told myself it was a new season, and this was where I belonged now. At first, I didn't mind the tiny guest room by the laundry. It didn't have a window, but it was close to the kids' rooms. I'd hear them cry at night and be there before anyone else. I liked being useful. I made breakfast, did school drop-offs, sorted mail, and clipped coupons. I didn't ask for anything in return, not even space in the fridge. But slowly, something shifted. Jenna started leaving notes. Could you not use the lavender detergent? It's too strong. Don't talk to Lily about that story again. She gets confused. I stopped reading bedtime stories. I stopped offering to do dishes. Not because I didn't want to help, but because every gesture felt like an intrusion. Kevin didn't say much. He worked long hours and came home exhausted. When I asked how his day was, he'd grunt and stare at his phone. I'd try to tell him about the kids, something funny they said, or a drawing they made, but he'd nod and keep scrolling. I stopped trying after a while. Then came the day I heard them whispering in the hallway. I was folding towels in the kitchen, the door slightly ajar. Jenna's voice was sharp, low. You need to talk to her. She can't live here forever. She doesn't help. She's just there. A presence. Kevin mumbled something, barely audible. She raised you. That's not the point, Jenna hissed. We have enough stress. She's dead weight. The towel slipped from my hands. I stood there, frozen. The words echoed louder than the silence that followed. Dead weight. I stepped into the hallway. I heard you, I said. Jenna's face turned red. Kevin blinked at me like he couldn't believe I had ears. That's not what she meant, he stammered. It is, I said. You just didn't think I'd be listening. They didn't speak. I didn't cry. I picked up the towel, folded it, and went back to my room. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. But something in me sank. Not in panic, not in heartbreak, just in truth. I had crossed oceans of motherhood, sacrificed, stayed quiet when I should have spoken, bent myself into something smaller for the sake of harmony, and still, I had become too much. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the blank wall. I thought about the dinners I made, the kids I raised, and the home I gave up. And for the first time in years, I let the silence speak. It didn't ask for permission, it just told me what I had known for a while. I didn't belong here. Not really. I was convenient, not cherished. Present, but not wanted. Alive, but fading. I wasn't Claire to them anymore. I was weight. And soon, I would have to decide whether I wanted to keep carrying their comfort on my back or start walking again on my own. Dinner was chicken soup. I had made it the way Kevin used to like when he was a boy, with thyme and extra noodles. My hands had been stiff all day, the arthritis acting up worse than usual. But I pushed through. It gave me purpose. The kitchen was one of the few places I still felt useful. I was carrying the soup to the table when the bowl slipped. It wasn't dramatic, just a quick shake in my wrist, and the hot broth tumbled down, splashing across the tablecloth and into Jenna's lap. She gasped, more in shock than pain. I reached for a napkin, murmuring I was sorry, truly sorry, but she didn't give me the chance. She slapped my hand away, hard, and then she slapped my face. The room went silent, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Kevin just sat there. He looked at me, then at her, then back at his plate. Not a word, not a move. Just silence. It wasn't the sting on my cheek that hurt. It was that he did nothing. I stood there, unsure if I should sit, or leave, or speak. My heart didn't race. It just cracked. The front door opened. Emily's voice called out, "Mom?" Her suitcase thudded against the wall. She was supposed to come next week. She had just finalized her divorce. I didn't know she'd arrive early. She walked in, saw the spilled soup, saw me holding my cheek, and saw Jenna standing over me like a guard dog. Her eyes locked on mine first, then shifted to Jenna, then Kevin, then back to me. What happened? Nobody answered. Not a single word. So she walked forward, slow and steady, and slapped Jenna across the face. The sound echoed. "If you ever touch my mother again," she said, her voice sharp like a blade, "I will make sure you never forget it." Jenna staggered back. Kevin jumped up from his seat. "You don't live here, Emily. You don't get to storm in and act like some hero. You don't even know what's going on." She turned to him, and her voice didn't shake. "I know enough. I know you let your wife hit Mom. I know you let her speak to her like trash. I know you said nothing." "She's not helping us," Kevin snapped. "She takes up space. Just like you. You ran back home the second life got hard. You both leech off everyone around you." Emily flinched. I saw it. His words landed harder than any slap ever could. That's when I stepped between them. "Enough." I didn't yell. I didn't raise my hands. I just said it, and they froze. I looked at Emily. "You are not useless." Then at Kevin. "And you are no longer my son." His mouth opened. No sound came out. I sat back down at the table, my hands trembling. But not from fear. Not from weakness. From restraint. There was a time when I thought giving everything would guarantee love. That staying silent was noble. That loyalty would be returned. But looking at Jenna glaring at me, and Kevin swallowing his pride to defend her, I realized something. I had traded my voice for a place in a house that no longer saw me. Emily came and sat beside me. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Her hand found mine under the table, and she squeezed. She didn't look at Jenna. She didn't look at Kevin. She just looked at me and gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. A choice. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't pack. I didn't shout. But something deep inside me had changed. Something irreversible. And by morning, I would know exactly what I needed to do. Before I moved in, I sold the house Kevin grew up in. It was a small 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it had a porch swing and daffodils I planted every spring. That house had seen me through widowhood, late-night fevers, scraped knees, and every birthday cake I ever baked. When Kevin and Jenna found their dream home, they were short on the down payment. Jenna was pregnant with their second child, and they came to me with hopeful eyes and gentle voices. I didn't hesitate. I wired the money within the week. I didn't ask to be on the deed. I didn't want them to feel burdened or watched. I told myself it was enough to know they were safe, and that the grandkids would have space to grow. They gave me the guest room, tucked between the laundry and the garage. It had no window, no closet, just a mattress on the floor. I told myself it didn't matter. I had a roof. I had the kids nearby, and that was what mattered. I folded laundry while the washer roared on the other side of the wall. I wore headphones at night to drown out the garage door. I adjusted. What they never knew was that I kept paying. After a few months, I noticed a final notice on the counter. Kevin brushed it off. Jenna had taken leave early. Things were tight. So I called the bank and quietly set up a recurring transfer. Half the mortgage, straight from my pension. Every month. For 3 years. They never asked where the money came from. I never told them. I didn't want Kevin to feel ashamed. I didn't want Jenna to resent me more than she already did. I just wanted to help. I wanted them to breathe easier. Every week, I cleaned up toys. I reheated leftovers. I filled in when they forgot school forms or missed pickup. I never complained. Not once. But lately, the gratitude faded into expectation, and the silence that once felt like peace began to feel like erasure. I had given everything. My home, my savings, my energy, my time, and somewhere along the way, they stopped seeing me as someone who gave. They started seeing me as someone who took up space. The decision came quietly. No breakdown, no shouting, no final straw. Just a calm moment of clarity. After years of swallowing the words I should have said, I called the bank that Tuesday morning. My name was still listed on the mortgage account as the payee, though I wasn't on the deed. I asked the woman on the line to stop the automatic transfers. She confirmed it, with a tone too polite to be casual. I asked her to redirect all future communication to Kevin and Jenna. Then I asked her to send me a final confirmation. That afternoon, I cooked lentil soup, Kevin's favorite back when he still remembered my birthday. I baked bread and set the table for 3. I tucked the envelope beside the salt shaker, right in the center of the table. The house felt still, as if it knew something was about to shift. They came home like it was any other night. Jenna kicked off her shoes, and Kevin mumbled into his phone. Dinner was quiet, just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the occasional clink of a spoon. No one asked how I was. They never did. When the plates were nearly empty, I reached for the envelope and slid it between them. Jenna glanced at it, uninterested. "What's that?" I wiped my hands on a napkin and met her eyes. "That's the last mortgage payment I'll ever make." She blinked. Kevin finally looked up. "I called the bank this morning. Everything's under your name now. From this moment on, it's yours to carry." Jenna opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Kevin looked like he had swallowed a stone. I kept speaking, calm and measured. "I paid half this mortgage for 3 years. I gave you the down payment. I cooked your meals, raised your children, and held my tongue when your wife insulted me. But tonight, I'm done." I stood up and lifted my suitcase from beside the chair. It was already packed. Jenna's voice rose, sharp and frantic. "You can't just leave. What about the kids? You can't drop this on us." I looked her in the eye. "I can, and I am." I turned to Kevin, my voice quiet but firm. "You let her hit me. You let her call me names. You chose her silence over my dignity. So now, I choose myself." And as I stepped away from that table, I didn't feel heavy. I felt light. I used to carry this house. Now, I carry myself. Emily's apartment was small. 1 bedroom, thin walls. A window that looked out over a crooked alley, lined with palm trees and tangled power lines. The air smelled like salt and citrus, and every floorboard creaked when you walked too fast. She made up the couch for me with fresh sheets and the softest blanket she had. I didn't need much, just a corner to sit, a place to rest, and no one watching me like I didn't belong. The first night, we didn't say much. She made tea. I sipped it. We sat in the hush of our own quiet and let it wrap around us like something we both had been missing for too long. We started slow. Morning walks to the corner market. Shared lists of what we could cook with 3 potatoes and half a bag of rice. I found an old recipe box in my bag, the one with my mother's handwriting, and Emily asked if we could bake something just for fun. We started with oatmeal cookies. Then banana bread. We took pictures and posted them online, more as a joke than anything else. But then, people started ordering. Neighbors, a woman down the hall, a man from the hardware store who wanted something sweet after work. We named our little side project Claire and M's Kitchen, even though it wasn't really a business. It was just something that gave our hands purpose and our days shape. Emily made jewelry, the kind she used to sell at craft fairs when she was in college. We cleared a corner in the living room and turned it into a packing station. Boxes, ribbons, handwritten notes. She designed cards that said, "Thank you," with tiny sea glass beads glued in the corner. I watched her find herself again, slowly, gently, like a flower, learning it was safe to bloom. I started keeping a journal, not to remember what happened, but to let go of what I had held too tightly. I wrote down small joys, the sound of Emily humming while she worked, the smell of cinnamon from the oven, the way the light spilled across the kitchen table just before sunset. Sometimes we sent postcards to Lily, my granddaughter. We didn't include a return address, just drawings of seagulls, silly rhymes about cookies, and notes about the weather. I didn't want to explain why I left. I just wanted her to know I hadn't disappeared. Emily and I didn't need to talk about the past. It lingered in the corners, but we didn't let it take up space between us. We were too busy learning how to breathe again, how to laugh without guilt, how to take up space without apology. We weren't wealthy. We weren't fully healed. But we were free. And that kind of peace, the kind you grow for yourself, is worth more than any house I ever paid for. In the evenings, we sat on the tiny balcony with chipped railings and listened to the ocean even though we couldn't see it. I drank tea, she read, and every once in a while, she'd reach for my hand and hold it, like we were both still learning that love didn't have to hurt. It could just be quiet, steady, and real. And that, after everything, was enough. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Emily was humming in the kitchen, stirring soup, while I trimmed the dead leaves from the basil plant on the windowsill. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my chest tightened when I saw the area code. I answered, without knowing why. There was a pause, then a small voice. "Grandma, are you okay?" It was Lily. I closed my eyes and took a breath. "I'm fine, sweetheart." Her voice was quiet. "Daddy's been crying, Mommy too. The bank sent a letter. They said we might lose the house." There was another pause, the kind that only a child could make feel endless. "Daddy said it used to be your house." I didn't respond. Then I heard the soft handoff of the phone, and Kevin's voice replaced hers. It sounded older, shaky. "Mom," he said, "I know I don't deserve to ask you this. I should have stopped her. I should have said something. I thought we had time." He asked for help, said they didn't know where to turn, said he knew it was too late, but begged anyway. I sat down at the table and looked around the apartment. The smell of lentils and lemon, the faint sound of the waves through the cracked window, the warmth in my chest that no longer depended on anyone else. I let him speak until he ran out of things to say. Then I told him the truth. "You only remember me now because the bills have come due. You forgot me when the table was full, but now that it's empty, you think of who used to cook." There was silence on his end. I didn't fill it. I didn't yell. I didn't blame. I just said one final thing. I used to carry that house. Now, I carry myself. 2 days later, a letter arrived. Real mail, with a stamp, and everything. The return address was scribbled in crayon. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper and a drawing of 2 stick figures standing in front of a crooked house. One of them had curly hair. Both were smiling. There was a note. "Dear Grandma, I miss you. I miss your cookies. I miss your hugs. Love, Lily." I read it 3 times before I cried. Not the kind of tears that sting from betrayal. Not the ones you swallow in silence. These were warm, slow, grateful. Someone still remembered me the right way. Someone still loved me without condition. And this time, the tears weren't for what I lost. They were for what I still had. And that, in the quiet of this little home, was more than enough. I used to believe my worth came from what I could do for others. How much I could give, how quiet I could be, how small I could make myself to fit in someone else's life. I thought love had to be earned through sacrifice, And respect was something you waited for, like a late train that might never come. But now, I wake up without waiting for permission to take up space. I make my coffee the way I like it, strong and simple. I sit by the window and let the sun warm my face like it was meant for me. There's no praise here, no applause, just peace. And I've learned that peace is not the absence of noise, it's the presence of self. Some nights, Emily and I sit quietly and don't say a word. There's no tension in the silence, no expectation, just breath and presence, and a softness I never knew I needed. I am not dead weight. I am memory. I am history. I have wisdom earned the hard way. So if you've ever been made to feel invisible, if you've been told you are too loud, too old, too emotional, too much, I want you to hear me now. You are not too much. You are enough. More than enough. And when you finally decide to stop asking for permission, you'll find something waiting for you. Not noise. Not applause. Just stillness. And in that stillness, your power will return. Not because someone gave it back, but because you remembered it was always yours.